So that was a very interesting conversation because the business owner had a lot to say. He had a lot to say. I mean, he actually showed me the difference between the one they currently have in store and the one that I brought. So this one is very wet, difficult to peel, and some of the beans are actually flat. So the one he had was way drier. It was bigger. It was like richer. By looking at both of them side by side, you could tell the difference, and I kind of understand where he's coming from because he mentioned why it's important to ensure that the beans is dried. So for instance, if they buy in bulk and they have to store it for a while before they use it, it's going to get moldy if it's not dry enough. So immediately I walked in, he had a whole lot of questions for me regarding the genetics, the fermentation process, a whole bunch of questions that I had no idea how to answer. So I just kept telling him, this is my research and entry phase, so he should just keep bringing the questions, and I'll talk to the farmers, I'll get him all the information he needs. And he was very kind, to educate me on a lot of stuff. So there's a whole process behind sourcing for cocoa, especially if you're trying to sell to specialty brands and companies as opposed to selling to those big institutions and companies. Because if you're trying to sell to big companies, which obviously I think most of the farmers in Nigeria already do, what those big companies do is that they buy in bulk, and once they buy in bulk and they ship to all those known brands, those known brands use different chemicals and processing methods to ensure that every type of cocoa that they receive gets processed in a way where it balances out the taste, it evens out the quality, and it's uniform, right? But most of the specialty places that deal with origin cocoa, they want it to still have its authenticity to it, and so they are more critical in terms of how they assess the cocoa. They will look out for the quality, the texture, the fermentation process, the taste, and all that. They get very granular with the details of what they are looking for. So their requirements are quite steep compared to when you're just selling to those big brands. But if you buy one of those no-name brand chocolates, when you taste it this year and you taste it next year and you taste it some other time, it's always going to be consistent because their processing method is consistent regardless of where the cocoa is sourced from. But when you buy from specialty places, you can actually tell the difference, based on the species, based on the origin and all of that. So they're very critical in their requirements and the details that they look out for whenever they request for cocoa. So there's a whole process, like I said, to it. Again, if anybody wants to explore this aspect of trying to sell to specialty places and smaller businesses, there's money there, because even the guy even mentioned it. He said if he was going to buy the one we have, for instance, right, he would probably buy it cheaper, but for him it's not about that. It's about quality. I don't think right now we are there when it comes to the kind of quality they want. I can speak to the farmers, I can try, but the fact that I'm not even there to even kind of like assess and gauge based on all the feedback that I received, I don't think it's practical for me to continue with trying to force anything right now into this current market. At the end of the day, the best avenue for anyone who's interested in this journey will be to go back to the farm and ensure you learn more about the fermentation process, the storage, the processing, and genetics and all of that. Because he also mentioned something very interesting about the species that we have, and he said that particular kind of cocoa is not the type that he carries. So he said Criollo or something, that's the type that he usually gets. And ours, I believe, is called Forastero. So ours is called Forastero variety. I don't know if that's what it is, but that was what I saw online. And he said he does not carry that type. So anyway, I'm again going to go back and read more on this. right now I don't think I want to proceed with even giving the other businesses the samples that I have, because he had a lot to say, and I think they probably would almost have similar feedback. Because when I looked at the difference, I could even tell myself that this one that I have here will be way more difficult to work with. He's right about it not being dry enough. It looks dry, it feels dry, but when you try to press it and break it, it does not snap, it doesn't break, it doesn't, fall apart. The back is very difficult to peel and all that, so you can actually tell that it is not the easiest cocoa bean to work with in its current form. Now, if I was back in Nigeria, yes, I could work closely with the farmers to try to see if we can get it to, compete a little bit and be better, but I am not on ground, and it just doesn't make any sense to try to do all of that virtually. So yeah, for now, that's the feedback that I have for you guys. I just want to say thank you so much for going on this journey with me. I'm really glad that at least we got to this point together. So for anybody who is interested, to go further with this, now you know what area to focus on. You can either just stay local in Nigeria, have your cocoa the way it is already, and then sell to those bigger companies. They're not too specific about the quality. Or you can actually look into improving the initial stage of processing, right, which is the fermentation, and ensuring that the quality is great. And then from that point, you can now come into the specialty market if you're still interested. So at least I've done the groundwork for you to know that there is market, there is definitely demand, there is market for it, as long as you have the right product to present to them. All right, guys, until I find something else exciting to go scouting and discovering and researching on, for now, this is me just taking a step back from this and going back to the drawing board to figure out what next. All right, guys, see you later. Bye.